The next day, James sat down with Thomas Crawford once more. The conversation was different this time, not about crisis management or overcoming sabotage, but about sustainability. The company had proven it could innovate and lead, but now it needed to do so responsibly. "James, we've discussed expansion, but I think it's time we set a clear direction for the future," Thomas said. "What's next for us? What's our legacy going to be?" James took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the question. He had always focused on the immediate challenges, but now, the question of legacy seemed more pressing. "We've got to make sure that we continue to be a company that stands for something," James replied, looking Thomas in the eye. "Innovation doesn't just mean creating something new. It means creating something that matters, something that makes a difference in people's lives. And I believe we can do that. We can lead in the tech industry, and at the same time, we can build a culture that encourages fairness, equality, and opportunity for all." "That's the vision we need," Thomas said, his voice steady. "I'm with you, James. Let's make sure we do this right." And with that, the vision for the company's future began to solidify. It was no longer just about the technology they were building, it was about how they were going to build it, and who they were going to bring along for the ride. As the company continued to grow, James never lost sight of what truly mattered. The product, the innovation, and the technology were important, but the people were everything. He made sure that every decision he made was informed by the principles that had gotten him this far: diversity, inclusion, and innovation. Months later, at the launch event for the next generation of their electric vehicle, James stood before the crowd, watching the reactions of investors, clients, and employees. The product was a success, but what struck him most was the faces in the crowd, a reflection of the company's new direction. It wasn't just about the tech anymore. It was about the people who were driving it forward. "This is just the beginning," James said, speaking to the crowd. "We've proven that we can create something amazing. But what's most important is that we've created a space where anyone, no matter who they are or where they come from, has a place to succeed." The crowd erupted in applause, but James didn't focus on the cheers. He looked around the room, seeing the faces of the diverse team that had helped build this future. They were the ones who had made this possible, and they were the ones who would carry the company forward. As James walked off the stage, he realized that the journey had come full circle. The underdog, the outsider, had become a leader, not just in innovation, but in building something that mattered. James's journey was one of challenges, setbacks, and ultimately, transformation. From the first engine he fixed to the massive scale-up of the company, he had not only revolutionized technology but had also redefined the very culture of the workplace. Innovation, yes. But more importantly, opportunity for all. James had built more than just a successful product. He had built a legacy, a company that would continue to innovate and lead, but most importantly, a company that would always make room for people from all backgrounds to succeed. And with that, James knew that the story of his company was far from over. The best was yet to come. The sound of heels clicking sharply against the polished marble floor echoed through the lobby of the Grandview Hotel, cutting through the otherwise quiet space. Rebecca Carter, a high-powered CEO of a Silicon Valley tech giant, stood rigid, her patience wearing thin. She had been standing at the front desk for over 10 minutes, trying and failing to make herself understood. The concierge, young, frazzled, and completely overwhelmed, couldn't help her. She glanced around, frustrated. There was no one who could assist her. She tried again, her voice polite but growing more strained. "I need to check in. I have a reservation. I am Rebecca Carter." The receptionist, a nervous young man named Josh, shuffled through a pile of papers before looking back at her with an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't seem to find your reservation in the system." Rebecca's breath hitched. She could feel the sweat creeping down her back as she took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. "You don't understand. I have a multi-million-dollar business deal to close tomorrow. I need my suite. Now." The young man stammered again, fumbling with his computer, but it was clear that his efforts were in vain. The situation was only getting worse. Behind her, Sarah Davis, the hotel's manager, stood arms crossed, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of disdain and impatience. She rolled her eyes, her gaze shifting from Rebecca to Josh, who was still hopelessly typing away. "This is ridiculous," Sarah muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. How could a CEO of a major tech company be unable to check in without causing a scene? "Get it together, Josh." Rebecca could feel the heat rise in her cheeks. The humiliation was setting in, but she held her ground. This wasn't about the mistake, this was about being treated like an inconvenience, an outsider in this supposed five-star establishment. She had traveled across the country, with a high-profile meeting hanging over her head, and yet here she was, stranded in a lobby because no one could figure out how to check her in. "Please," Rebecca said, her voice cold now, "I have a meeting with the board members of multiple Fortune 500 companies tomorrow. We cannot afford delays like this. If I don't get in my room now, the entire deal could collapse." Sarah stepped forward, her heels clicking authoritatively against the floor, her tone dripping with disdain. "You should have double-checked your reservation earlier. It's a little late for last-minute issues, don't you think?" Rebecca's heart raced. This was more than just an inconvenience, it was an embarrassment. Sarah's words, dripping with superiority, felt like a slap in the face. Her jaw clenched, but she fought to keep her composure. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Rebecca saw her. Emily Johnson, a security guard who had been standing off to the side, quietly observing. She had been part of the hotel staff for years, working in the shadows, always unseen but always present. Emily's job was simple: keep an eye out, make sure things ran smoothly. But today, she would be the one who changed everything. Rebecca had no idea how much Emily had noticed, how much she had been paying attention, but she saw the look on Emily's face, one of quiet frustration, one that mirrored her own. Emily had seen it all, the disinterest, the superiority, the disregard. This wasn't just another day at work for her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. As the tension in the air thickened, the situation seemed to hit a boiling point. Sarah snapped her fingers. "Josh, call a translator. Now." The young man fumbled through his phone, his hands trembling. He called the translator, but it was clear, the words coming out of Rebecca's mouth weren't something anyone in this hotel was prepared for. The situation felt like it was spiraling out of control. Rebecca was about to lose it. She had been on the phone with clients all day, and now, here she was, stranded at a luxury hotel, unable to even get a room. Her reputation was on the line. How was this happening? That's when Emily made her move. With measured steps, she approached the desk, her calm demeanor in stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around her. She dropped her security wand gently to the ground and straightened her uniform. There was something in her eyes that said, "This ends now." The moment she spoke, her voice was soft but firm. "Excuse me, ma'am. If you'll allow me to, I can help you." Rebecca turned, startled. She didn't expect anyone to come to her aid, especially not from someone like Emily, who was clearly just a hotel security guard. Yet, something in the woman's eyes told her that she wasn't about to be ignored. Sarah raised an eyebrow, her gaze flicking to Emily in irritation. "Excuse me. Do you know who you're talking to?" Emily, undeterred, nodded at Rebecca. "Ma'am, if you'd allow me, I can get you checked in. I know the system." It was then that Emily reached for the keyboard. Rebecca's eyes narrowed in disbelief. This wasn't possible. This was the same young woman who had been standing by, unnoticed, like everyone else. How could she be the one to solve this? But she didn't wait to ask. Emily typed something into the computer and, within seconds, the reservation appeared on the screen. "There you go, ma'am." "All set," Emily said with a quiet smile. Rebecca stared in disbelief. Back downstairs, Emily returned to her post, her mind spinning. She had always been the silent observer, the one who cleaned up the messes others left behind. But today, something had shifted. She had never taken the opportunity to step forward before, never felt she could. But what happened earlier, seeing someone like Rebecca treated the way she had been, it had sparked something deep inside her. Emily had worked here for 5 years. She had seen it all, the wealth, the privilege, the arrogance that came with it. She had been looked down on, ignored, and dismissed countless times. But today was different. Today, she had used her voice in a way she hadn't in years. As she stood at her post, she saw Sarah Davis approaching, her heels clicking against the marble. Emily straightened, not out of fear, but with a sense of purpose. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she approached, taking in Emily's posture. "You're on your break now, right?" Sarah snapped, a subtle challenge in her voice. Emily didn't flinch. "I'm fine. I'll work the rest of the shift. Just wanted to be sure everything was in order." Sarah eyed her, the hint of suspicion clear. She knew Emily had solved the problem with Rebecca, but there was no way she was going to let that go unnoticed. "I don't know what kind of tricks you pulled to get that woman into her room, but you better not think this gives you any special privileges. Stay in your lane, Emily." Emily stood her ground. "I'm doing my job, Sarah." The tension between them was palpable. For the first time, Emily didn't feel the weight of Sarah's authority pressing down on her. She could feel it in her chest, confidence. It was a strange and unfamiliar feeling, but it was there, burning just beneath the surface. She didn't need to let Sarah intimidate her anymore. Sarah shot her a cold look before turning on her heel. "Whatever. Just remember who's in charge here." The next morning, Rebecca woke up earlier than usual. The day was set to be a pivotal one, business meetings, negotiations, and promises that could make or break her company. But even as she dressed, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened the night before. Emily. She had been different, calm, collected, and in control. For someone working as a security guard, Emily had been more professional and more capable than anyone else she'd met that day. The memory of that encounter nagged at Rebecca, unsettling her in a way she couldn't explain. As she made her way down to the lobby for breakfast, her gaze swept over the room. The same faces, the same routine. And then she saw her. Emily, standing behind the counter in her uniform, not standing out, but still somehow standing apart. Rebecca paused for a moment, deciding to approach her. "Good morning, Emily, right?" Rebecca greeted her as she walked up. Emily looked up, startled by the recognition. "Yes, ma'am. Good morning." Rebecca smiled, taking a seat at the bar near Emily's station. She had questions. So many questions. But more than that, she felt compelled to acknowledge the woman who had saved her yesterday, despite everything. "I just wanted to thank you again for helping me last night," Rebecca said, leaning in slightly. "No one else was able to help me. And then you stepped in. How did you even know what to do?" Emily hesitated for a moment, glancing around. It's part of my job, ma'am. I just knew the system, that's all." Rebecca wasn't buying it. There was more to Emily than she was letting on. She wasn't just a security guard, she had skills, something more than the others around her. Rebecca decided to push a little further. "You know, I think you should consider a different career path. With your abilities, you could be doing something much more than working in security. You've got potential." Emily looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the compliment. "I'm just doing my job. It's not about potential. It's about paying the bills." Rebecca shook her head, her voice becoming more serious. "No, Emily. You have potential. You just have to believe in it. The way you handled things last night, there's so much more you can do." Emily remained silent, but inside, her heart skipped a beat. Could Rebecca be right? Had she been settling for too long? The weight of the compliment hung in the air, and for the first time in years, Emily considered the possibility that she might be worth more than just the job she had been doing. By midday, Emily found herself walking through the hotel's staff hallways, her mind still on Rebecca's words. She hadn't expected to feel so conflicted. What was it that had drawn her to Rebecca's side in the first place? It wasn't just the situation, it was the way Rebecca had looked at her. Respect. No one had ever looked at her that way before. No one had ever truly seen her. As she turned a corner, Emily spotted Sarah, who was deep in conversation with another member of the management team. Sarah glanced up and caught her eye, her expression darkening instantly. Emily's confidence wavered, but only for a moment. She was done being intimidated. "You better be careful, Emily," Sarah said as she passed, her voice low and dangerous. "The last thing you need is to get on the wrong side of the wrong people here." Emily didn't flinch. She stood tall and met Sarah's gaze. "I'm just doing my job. Same as you." The exchange, though brief, was enough to push Emily further into her decision. She would not back down. Not anymore. She wasn't just going to be a background player in this hotel. She had something more to offer, something she wasn't going to hide anymore. By the end of the day, Emily was back at her post. The hotel was busier than usual, with new arrivals and guests bustling around. She hadn't seen Rebecca since breakfast, but the idea of her kept resurfacing in her thoughts. What if Rebecca was right? What if Emily really could do more? As the evening approached, Emily received an unexpected message on her phone. It was from Rebecca. "I want to talk to you. Can you meet me at the bar in 30 minutes? Emily's heart raced. Was this it? Was Rebecca about to offer her a job? A chance at something better? Emily wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew one thing: she wasn't going to let fear stop her. Emily stood in front of the bar, her palms a little sweaty despite her best efforts to calm herself. She had been invited here by Rebecca, the CEO of a major tech company, a woman who had turned her world upside down in just a few short days. And now, here she was, about to sit down with her. The hotel's bar was quiet, the low hum of conversation filling the space as the evening crowds gathered. Emily's nerves had settled somewhat, but the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her. Rebecca Carter was not just any businesswoman. She was someone at the top of her field. Someone who could change her life. Rebecca was already sitting at a corner booth, nursing a drink. When Emily approached, Rebecca smiled up at her, gesturing to the seat across from her. "Emily, you made it." Rebecca's voice was warm and welcoming, the complete opposite of the tension that Emily had been feeling. "I'm glad you came." As Emily slid into the seat, she couldn't help but notice the contrast between herself and Rebecca. The suit, the polished look, the confidence that seemed to radiate off Rebecca, everything about her spoke of success. Emily, on the other hand, still wore the plain security uniform she had worn all day. Rebecca raised her glass slightly. "You've had a rough week, huh?" Emily hesitated. "It's been a lot. But I'm managing." Rebecca smiled. "I know the feeling. Running a company, managing people, trying to keep everything afloat. It can feel like you're on the edge all the time, just waiting for the next crisis to hit." Emily nodded, not quite sure how to respond. Rebecca's words resonated with her, but she couldn't help but feel out of place. It wasn't every day that someone like her sat down with someone like Rebecca Carter. Rebecca leaned forward, her expression shifting to something more serious. "You know, I've been thinking about our conversation earlier." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Had she said something wrong? Rebecca continued, "I think you're smarter than you give yourself credit for. I see something in you, something a lot of people don't." Emily was silent for a moment, unsure of how to take the compliment. She had spent most of her life being overlooked, ignored, and dismissed. But Rebecca saw something different. "You have a lot of potential, Emily. I want to offer you something that could change everything for you." Emily's pulse quickened. What was happening? Was she being offered a job? A chance to finally escape the cycle she had been trapped in for so long. I'm offering you a position on my team. Rebecca's voice was steady, but there was an undeniable seriousness to it. I want you to work for me, help me build something bigger than what you've ever imagined. The words hit Emily like a ton of bricks. She stared at Rebecca, trying to process the offer. You want me to work for you? Doing what? Rebecca gave a small, knowing smile. You'd start in a role that leverages your skills, everything you've done in the past, everything you've kept hidden from others. You're capable of far more than you realize. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just about a new job. This was about a new beginning. Rebecca continued, I'm not asking you to give up everything, Emily. I'm asking you to see what you're truly capable of. I can see the fire in you. It's just a matter of unlocking it. Emily was overwhelmed, but the more she thought about it, the more the idea began to feel real. She had been stuck for so long, unsure of her place in the world. But this was an opportunity to change everything. I don't know what to say. Emily stammered. Rebecca smiled again, her eyes softening. You don't have to decide now. Just think about it. It could be the start of something big, Emily. Don't sell yourself short. Emily took a deep breath, her mind racing. She had always played it safe. She had always kept her head down, stayed out of trouble. But was she ready to take this step? Could she step out of the shadows and be seen? She looked at Rebecca, who was patiently waiting for a response, and for the first time, Emily felt a sense of purpose. This wasn't just about a job offer. This was about stepping into her own. I'll think about it. Emily finally said. Rebecca's eyes sparkled with something like approval. Good. Take your time. She leaned back, her posture relaxing. But just know that when you're ready, the opportunity will still be there. The following days were a blur for Emily. The offer from Rebecca weighed heavily on her mind, but so did the reality of her current situation. Could she really leave her job as a security guard? Was it possible for someone like her to step into the world Rebecca was offering her? Or was she destined to stay stuck in a cycle she knew all too well? Meanwhile, back at the hotel, the tension between Emily and Sarah was growing. Every time they crossed paths, Sarah's cold, dismissive attitude was palpable. Emily had been rising in ways that Sarah could no longer ignore, and the resentment was starting to show. One evening, as Emily walked down a hallway near the back of the hotel, she heard Sarah's voice, sharp and dismissive. You really think you can just waltz in and take someone else's spot? Sarah sneered, her tone dripping with mockery. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She had been walking past the storage room when Sarah appeared, blocking her path. Emily stood still, keeping her posture straight and steady. I'm not trying to take anyone's spot, Sarah. Emily said calmly, her voice firm but controlled. No. Sarah smirked. Then why are you suddenly thinking you're someone important? You're just a security guard. Don't forget that. Emily's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, she was back in that place where she had always felt small, her heart racing, her mind blank. But this time was different. She stood her ground. I know who I am. I know my worth. Maybe you should start thinking about that too. You don't own this hotel, Sarah, ***. The words hung in the air for a moment before Sarah's face twisted in anger. You better watch your back. Sarah spat, her voice low and menacing. You'll never belong in the world you're trying to get into. Emily didn't flinch. We'll see about that. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving Sarah standing in the hallway, fuming with anger. The tension between Emily and Sarah escalated over the next week. The once steady, predictable routine of Emily's work life had suddenly been shaken up, and Emily could feel the change. The feeling of power was intoxicating. No longer did she feel invisible. No longer did she have to hide her talents and her potential. Emily couldn't help but think about the offer Rebecca had made. She had never been so close to something so life-changing. The chance to finally step into a world where she could be seen, truly seen, was an opportunity she couldn't ignore. But there was still one question: was she ready to leave it all behind? The days following Emily's conversation with Rebecca felt like a roller coaster of emotions. She had never been in a position like this before, torn between the life she knew and the life that could be. She had gone through her shifts at the hotel, her mind constantly circling back to Rebecca's offer. Every time she passed the front desk, or Sarah's office, she could feel the weight of the decision growing heavier. But then, something unexpected happened. One late afternoon, as Emily was making her rounds through the lobby, she noticed a small gathering of hotel staff near the bar. She approached, curious. The group of employees stood in a loose circle, talking in hushed tones. At first, Emily couldn't make out what they were saying, but as she drew closer, she heard snippets of conversation that stopped her in her tracks. "Have you heard what Sarah said?" one of the housekeepers whispered. "She said Emily's trying to take over, that she thinks she can just waltz in and get what she wants." "I don't know, man. I've seen Emily step up more than anyone here. If anyone deserves something better, it's her." Another employee, a bartender, chimed in, clearly torn. Emily took a step back, her heart pounding. It was clear the gossip had started. Sarah had been spreading lies, trying to undermine her. The whispers of jealousy and resentment were now out in the open. But this wasn't just about Sarah anymore. Emily realized that the employees weren't only talking about her, they were talking around her, about the choices she had yet to make. They were watching her every move, waiting to see which direction she would take. The pressure was mounting. Her every action was being scrutinized, and it felt like the walls were closing in. The tension between Emily and Sarah reached its boiling point one afternoon, just days after the gossip had begun circulating. Emily had finished her shift and was in the staff break room when Sarah entered, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. Emily looked up, her muscles tensing instinctively. Sarah didn't waste any time. "I know what you're trying to do, Emily." Her voice was cold, calculated. "You think you can come in here, do a little bit of good, and everyone's just going to hand you a golden ticket? You're nothing but a security guard." Emily stood up, the words striking like daggers. The old Emily might have stayed silent, kept her head down, but not anymore. "You don't get it, do you, Sarah?" Emily's voice was firm, cutting through the tension in the room. "This isn't about a golden ticket. This is about respect. You might think I don't belong here, but I'm tired of being invisible. You think you can just push me around because of my job, but I'm done letting you dictate my worth." Sarah's face twisted with anger, her eyes narrowing. She stepped forward, practically chest to chest with Emily. "You don't belong in this world, Emily." The words hung heavy in the air, filled with venom. "You'll never be anything more than what you are now." Emily felt the familiar sting of humiliation, but instead of backing down, she felt something inside her snap. The rage that had been simmering for years bubbled to the surface. She didn't need Sarah's approval. She didn't need anyone's approval. "You're wrong, Sarah." Emily's voice was steady now, her anger channeled into a force of clarity. "I belong wherever I choose to be." Sarah's lip curled in disgust, but she didn't respond. She turned sharply and stormed out of the break room, leaving Emily standing there, breathless, her body trembling with adrenaline. That night, as Emily lay in bed, her mind raced. Sarah had gone too far. The words she had said were the final straw. Emily had spent so long accepting less than she deserved, living in the shadows, letting people walk all over her. But no more. The offer from Rebecca still lingered in her mind, pulling at her. What would it mean to leave the hotel behind? What would it mean to take control of her life? The decision was almost too much to bear. Emily didn't want to disappoint the people who depended on her, her colleagues who had seen her potential, who had supported her. But she also knew she couldn't stay in a place where her worth was dictated by her uniform. As she tossed and turned, Emily's phone buzzed with a new message from Rebecca. "I know this is a big decision, but I believe in you. Don't let fear keep you from taking the chance of a lifetime." Those words hit her like a punch to the gut. Emily's heart raced. She had already come so far, she couldn't turn back now. The next morning, Emily walked into the hotel with a newfound sense of purpose. The sounds of the lobby, footsteps, conversations, clinking glasses, no longer felt like an overwhelming weight. They felt like opportunity. She made her way through the familiar halls, heading straight to Sarah's office. Emily had made her decision. The door was closed, but Emily knocked, her knuckles striking the wood with authority. After a moment, Sarah's voice called from inside. "Come in." When Emily stepped inside, Sarah looked up, her expression dark. "What do you want now?" "I'm done, Sarah." Emily's voice was unwavering. "I'm leaving." Sarah's eyes widened, a flash of disbelief crossing her face. "What? You think you can just walk away from all of this? You'll never make it in the real world." Emily smiled, a sense of calm washing over her. "I already am in the real world. And I'm not going to let you tell me where I belong anymore, ***. With that, Emily turned and walked out of the office, her head held high. Later that afternoon, Emily stood outside the hotel, her heart pounding. She had done it. She had walked away from the only life she had known for years. And now, it was time to step into her future. Her phone buzzed again, and this time, it was a call from Rebecca. "Emily." Rebecca's voice was warm but filled with curiosity. "I got your message. Are you ready to make the move?" Emily smiled, the weight of her decision settling in. "Yes. I'm ready." And just like that, Emily's journey took its first true step forward. The future was waiting for her, no longer uncertain, no longer defined by anyone else's expectations. She was going to write her own story. As Emily settled into her new role, she faced a steep learning curve. But there was something liberating about every challenge. Unlike before, she wasn't working to please someone else, she was working for herself. With every new responsibility she took on, she felt herself growing stronger, more confident. The skills she had hidden away for so long were finally being put to use. But as the days passed, Emily realized that the real challenge wasn't the job. It was learning to believe in herself the way others did. She had spent years doubting her worth, hiding in the shadows. But now, she was stepping into the light. The first day at Rebecca's company felt surreal for Emily. She stood in front of the office building, staring at the sleek, glass-covered exterior. This was the world she had always imagined, yet it seemed so distant. No more security uniforms, no more long shifts under fluorescent lights. Today, she was entering a new realm, one where her abilities, her intelligence, would finally be put to use. The lobby inside was clean and modern, full of busy people wearing suits and talking about deals, projects, and timelines. Emily hesitated for a moment. She was used to being invisible, used to being in the background. But today, she wasn't just a bystander. She had a seat at the table. Rebecca was waiting for her near the elevators, her smile as warm as ever. "Welcome aboard, Emily." Her voice was full of sincerity. "I'm glad you're here." Rebecca led her through the maze of cubicles and glass walls, explaining the different departments and teams that would be her new colleagues. Emily's mind raced as she tried to absorb everything. She'd be working closely with the data analytics team, helping streamline communication and improve workflow. It wasn't the glamorous job she had dreamed about, but it was a start. "You'll have a lot to learn, but don't worry. We'll take it one step at a time," Rebecca reassured her. The first few weeks at the company were harder than Emily had anticipated. The learning curve was steep, and she had to catch up fast. She was now surrounded by people who were highly educated, highly skilled, and used to operating at a level far beyond what she had experienced. But for the first time, Emily felt challenged in a way that excited her, not in a way that intimidated her. She began diving into data reports, analyzing customer behavior, and figuring out ways to improve internal processes. The more she worked, the more she realized she was in way over her head, but she also found herself thriving. She had been underestimated for so long, but now she was finally given the tools to prove herself. By the end of the first month, Emily had already presented her first proposal to the team, an idea for improving client engagement. She was nervous, her hands shaking slightly as she clicked through her presentation, but when she finished, there was silence. Then, one of the senior analysts, a woman named Sarah, spoke up. "This is brilliant. It's simple but effective. We could really streamline some of our processes using this." She smiled at Emily. "Great job." That moment, the approval, the recognition, was enough to make Emily feel like she truly belonged here. For the first time, she realized that she wasn't just lucky to be in this position. She earned it. As Emily's role at the company grew, so did the tension between her and Sarah, the senior analyst. At first, Sarah had been supportive, praising Emily's ideas and hard work. But over time, the praise began to feel more like a challenge, as if Sarah was keeping a close eye on Emily, waiting for her to fail. One afternoon, while Emily was sitting at her desk, working on a new proposal, Sarah came up behind her. Her tone was sharp. "You know, Emily, not everyone here appreciates the fact that you're moving up so fast." Emily looked up, meeting Sarah's gaze with calmness she didn't feel. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to stay composed. "Let's just say some people might think you've skipped a few steps." Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. "Not everyone appreciates a newcomer getting special treatment, especially from Rebecca." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had heard rumors, of course, but hearing it directly from Sarah made it feel more real. There were people here who resented her success, and Sarah was clearly one of them. But Emily didn't back down. She knew that the only way to survive here was to prove her worth, not just through her work, but through her resilience. "I'm not here for special treatment, Sarah." Emily stood up, meeting Sarah's gaze head-on. "I'm here because I earned it, just like everyone else." Sarah's eyes narrowed, but she didn't say anything more. Emily turned back to her desk, refusing to let the tension derail her focus. As the months passed, Emily's confidence grew. She wasn't just fitting in, she was excelling. Her proposals were getting more attention, and she was starting to lead meetings, collaborating with departments across the company. The team that had once looked at her as an outsider was beginning to see her as one of them. Rebecca, of course, was watching closely, and Emily's progress didn't go unnoticed. "You're doing great, Emily," Rebecca told her during a weekly check-in. "I've heard nothing but good things about your work. Keep pushing forward." It felt like everything was finally falling into place. Emily had done it. She had gone from the background to the forefront, and now, she was leading. But Sarah still lingered in the background, and Emily knew that sooner or later, she would have to face her head-on. She had already stepped up in ways no one expected, and she wouldn't back down now. As Emily made her way into the boardroom for a major presentation, she glanced at the team gathered around the table. She was ready. Ready to prove not only her worth but to own her place in this world. It was inevitable that Emily and Sarah would clash. The two women had been circling each other for months, each waiting for the right moment to establish dominance. Emily had known that this was coming. She had felt the tension building, and now, it was time to face it. The moment came during a team meeting, when Sarah made a subtle jab at one of Emily's recent ideas. "I just think we need to be careful with this approach," Sarah said, her voice just loud enough for the entire team to hear. "It's a bit risky, don't you think? We don't want to move too fast, especially without considering all possible consequences." The implication was clear. Sarah was trying to undermine Emily's work, trying to position herself as the more experienced voice of reason. But Emily didn't flinch. Instead, she spoke calmly, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "I've already considered the risks, Sarah. This approach isn't about speed, it's about efficiency and growth. We need to take calculated risks if we want to move forward." There was a brief silence before Rebecca, who had been listening quietly, nodded in agreement. "I think Emily's right," Rebecca said, turning to the rest of the team. "We've been playing it safe for too long. It's time to push boundaries." Sarah's face flushed with anger, but she didn't speak. Emily could feel her victory settling in. She had held her ground, and for the first time, she wasn't just an outsider, she was a leader. As the weeks went by, Emily's place at the company became more solidified. Her confidence had grown, and so had her role. She was no longer the person on the outside looking in, she was now at the center of every major decision. And yet, despite the success, Emily knew that her journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges, always people like Sarah trying to tear her down. But now, Emily knew how to fight back. She knew that her worth wasn't determined by what others said about her, but by what she believed about herself. As she stood in front of the window of her new office, looking out at the city below, Emily realized that this was only the beginning. She had made it this far, and she was just getting started. The road ahead would be difficult, but it would be hers to walk. And this time, no one could stop her. Emily's journey is a story of resilience, self-discovery, and breaking through the glass ceilings imposed by others. From a security guard to a powerful leader in a high-powered company, she proves that no matter where you start, it's not about where you come from, it's about where you choose to go. Her story is a reminder that the only limits that exist are the ones we place on ourselves, and when we stop allowing others to define our worth, we can truly achieve greatness.